one of my favorite stories is I did a simple prayer and like encouragement for people who were suffering from suicidal thoughts. Put that out there. And all of a sudden, I get a DM from a guy, I think he was from South Africa, who said, "Hey man, I was going to end my life today, but then I saw your video and I didn't." Like that right there just blows my mind. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. I'm the Tattooed Preacher. Hope you're all doing awesome today. Now, in this video, I just wanted to briefly talk about using social media for Jesus. Now, I believe every single Christian who's watching this video right now, every single one of you, whether you think you can become a social media creator or not, every single person has the capacity and the ability to put out content into the world to bless people and to push people towards Jesus. Now, did you know that there's 8 billion people alive on the planet right now? 8 billion. And out of those 8 billion people, about 7.2 billion of them own a smartphone. Over 7.2 billion people own a smartphone. Now, let's just assume on the low end, it's probably way higher than this, but let's just say the average person is on their phone for 1 hour a day. Let's just say. That means every single day, there's over 7 billion watch time hours globally on social media. Over 7 billion hours. Now, our minds can't even begin to compute the size of that number, but that's just insane. And so what does that tell us? Number one, that means there's a lot of people who own one of these, and there's a lot of people who are using them, and in particular on social media. Now, as Christians, we know there's the Great Commission. Jesus said we're to go into all the world, preaching the gospel. We know that we are ambassadors for Christ. We know that it's part of our job and our responsibility as Christians to preach the gospel and reach this world for Jesus. And for so many years, so many decades, to reach people for Jesus consisted of going on missions trips, which is still an awesome thing to do, street evangelism, going into the inner city or parts of major metropolitan cities and reaching the people who are homeless or who are on the streets, talking to people at the grocery store, at the gas station, befriending people at work. I mean, it was about this physical interaction of physically going and talking to people. It was people standing on the street corner, downtown major cities with wearing the sign, "Repent or you're going to go to hell," and all this. I mean, this is how reaching people for Jesus was typically taught, thought about, practiced. And don't get me wrong, in all of that, there's a lot of stuff that is good, that's awesome, and that should still be continuing today. But we are living in such an interesting time period where we can think outside the box, where it's possible to not just reach people in our own local areas, but it's possible to literally reach people around the world in every continent in seconds. And that's the power of social media. I mean, just look at all major celebrities, major social media influencers, the amount of influence and the impressions that they have on culture, on society at large. I mean, it's crazy. Now just think about how, if you flip that from a Christian perspective, how much influence, how much impression can the body of Christ have, can the church have on the world if every believer, every Christian began to repurpose their social media for Jesus? Now, I've heard, for a lot of years where it's this constant cycle where a lot of people have social media, a lot of Christians, and they're on it all the time, scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. They realize, oh man, I'm spending so much time scrolling. Mindless scrolling is just useless, waste of time. I need to go on a social media fast. And then they go on this fast for X amount of days, weeks, or months, and then they come back and they'll be like, okay, cool. And then they start the cycle again and realize I'm on it too much, mindless scrolling. I got to go on a fast. Well, what if we just changed the way we looked at social media? Yes, the mindless scrolling is not a good use of our time. But what if every Christian just began to repurpose your social media? It doesn't matter if you have 10 followers or 10 million followers, it doesn't matter. Begin to repurpose it for Jesus. Stop using it to waste time, if that's a huge thing for you, but instead use the time on social media that you put into it and put things out there yourself that would lead people to encounter Jesus. Now, just think of it. I mean, from my own perspective, my own example here, I never intended to be some kind of social media content creator. A few years ago, I barely knew what TikTok was, and I didn't really know what a reel was. Like, legit. I just had a couple hundred followers on on Instagram, and it was just family, friends, and random acquaintances from high school 20 years ago, and that was it. But then I began to just figure out, okay, here's what reels are. Okay, let me just start putting out some stuff for fun. Use it as just a way to try to encourage people, try to just reach people for Jesus in very simple and easy ways. And so what I would do is I would record myself either reading an inspirational quote, I would do a prayer, I would talk about a Bible verse, just things very simple, 30 seconds, no real editing, no huge fancy backdrop and fancy lights and cameras, just literally selfie mode with my iPhone and 30 seconds, and that was it. And I began to just do that a few times a week. And over the course of a couple of months, all of a sudden started getting literally thousands of followers, people following my Instagram, getting messages from people literally all over the world, from Australia to South Africa to Thailand to the Philippines to Russia, like everywhere saying, hey man, thanks so much for your encouragement. Thanks so much for posting that. And it blew my mind. Was not trying to do anything, was not trying to be anybody, just literally doing things for fun, seeing what would happen. And people's lives were being changed as a result. One of my favorite stories is I did a simple prayer and like encouragement for people who were suffering from suicidal thoughts. Put that out there. And all of a sudden, I get a DM from a guy, I think he was from South Africa, who said, hey man, I was going to end my life today, but then I saw your video and I didn't. Like that right there just blows my mind. That kind of, I could have that kind of influence in someone I don't know, didn't know existed, lived halfway around the world in a different continent, but yet my simple video was enough to change their life. And I'm one person. Now think about if every Christian began to use their social media to lead people towards Jesus. Now that doesn't mean you have to do 55 videos a day. Doesn't mean you have to come up with this massive elaborate backdrop and fancy lights and all this kind of stuff. It could simply mean you are on your YouVersion Bible app and you're reading the Bible today and you see a verse that just hits you right in the heart. And then you turn that verse into a graphic, which you can actually do on the app. And then you upload that graphic onto your various social media platforms. Like that's all that it takes. And it doesn't matter if 5 people see it or 5 million people see it. It makes no difference. The point is those 5 people that saw that graphic may have read that verse and that verse could have touched their heart. That's 5 people that you were able to potentially encourage and speak to them about Jesus. That's the power here. It is not some huge elaborate ministry. It doesn't have to be this daunting task. You don't have to be this massive extrovert to do it. But we're living in a time where the ability to have influence on a global scale is for everybody. Every single person has the capacity to literally go viral. Everybody has the ability to post a 30-second video talking about what God did for you that day, or praying, or reading a Bible verse, whatever, putting it out there and having it literally go around the world. Now imagine if every Christian began to repurpose their social media that way, not using it for mindless scrolling and not going down the rabbit hole of social media, reels or TikToks or wherever you watch your stuff, but just deciding, you know what, I'm going to use my social media for Jesus. I'm going to start putting out godly content into the sea of nonsense and garbage that's already out there circulating. Imagine if the 2+ billion Christians on the planet began to do that. How much influence, how much impression we could have. And so I just want to encourage you today, if you're watching this and you are not involved in social media, I want to encourage you, just try it. Take a few weeks, post some videos, post some graphics of your favorite Bible verses, whatever, and just see what God would do. Even if you only reach one person, that's one more person that's reached. Now, my wife, when I first started this, I would get too caught up in like the numbers. Oh, this reel only had this many views, and why isn't it going more viral and all this kind of stuff? And she was always be like, Joel, you're doing it for the one. Joel, you're doing it for the one. Don't get focused on how many, just focus on the one person that you're doing this for. And so that's my encouragement to you. It doesn't matter if your videos or whatever your content doesn't go viral. It doesn't matter if you don't amass millions of followers. All that matters is, are you pushing people towards Jesus? Are you encouraging even one person every day? You have the capacity with this right here to literally encourage people all over the world within seconds. And so that's my challenge to you today. Begin to repurpose your social media for Jesus and see what God will do. So that's it for this video. Hope it spoke to you. Hope it encouraged you. And please let me know down below if you do this yourself, and let me know any testimonies. Let me know of any cool stories of you reaching people for Jesus using social media. Well, have an awesome rest of your day, evening, and we'll see you all in the next video. Much love. God bless.